My name is HmolikC. Date of birth, March 14, 1953. From Palmyra, Valle del Cauca, Colombia. Owner of the SDF HmolikC brand system. Fractional data simplifier. Operating in Madrid, Spain. The following subjects in the arts and technical sciences were especially important to continue providing my aforementioned services in parallel, to continue what I could now call research. Effects of light. Applied physics. Incidence of light. Particularities of direct rays. Particularities of indirect rays. Impact on the environment's existence when light passes through. Constitutive reaction of the ray of light and the compromised existences. Lens classes. Analysis of colloidal stocks to obtain lenses for use in microformat picometric, for observation in pathological anatomy samples. Provision of hygiene resources for lenses manufactured for contact lenses. Implementation for the preservation of lens status. Focus correctors. Photomechanical design. Picometric image processing. Image processing in cinematographic films. Image processing for letterpress printing. Image processing for lithographic printing. Image processing for macro storage of computerized information through the operating channel of the SDF HmolikC system. Assembly and editing. Picometric image. From the image in cinematographic films. From the image for letterpress printing. From the image for lithographic printing. From the image for the macro storage of computerized information through the operational channel of the SDF HmolikC system. Constitution of albumins. Training in the constitution and reaction of the chemical components involved in the different presences in their different solid, colloid, liquid, gaseous and original states. Picometric analysis of the composition and induced reaction of substances and albumins. Analysis of orthochromatic and panchromatic images. Rigorous attention to the minimum expression of the graphic point. Pay attention to the particular increase in the picometric formats of the constants that causes the Moiré effect in the observation, also known as the Moiré effect. Picometric image. From the image in cinematographic films. From the image for letterpress printing. From the image for lithographic printing. From the image for the macro storage of computerized information through the operational channel of the SDF HmolikC system. Composition of photosensitive substances. Chemical composition. Molecular structure architecture. Adverse reactions to normal printing or photo engraving speed on the different applied surfaces. Composition of revealing substances, their chemical composition, their molecular structure architecture. Adverse reactions to the normal speed of contrast in the bromide that receives exposure. Presensitization of photosensitive surfaces. Surface preparation. Development of sensitized photographic surfaces. Pay attention to the time it takes for the photosensitive albumin to react optimally on the surface. Filter class. New filter designs. To correct the image quality in picometric. To correct image quality in motion pictures. To correct image quality for letterpress printing. To correct image quality for lithographic printing. Selection and color separation of slides. Polychromatic transparencies. Contact separation of polychromy on presensitized film using a filter that programs the desired color. Filter renewal to mask layers in the separation of colors from a polychromatic transparency. Phototype. Degree. To correct image quality in motion pictures. To correct image quality for letterpress printing. To correct image quality for lithographic printing. Animation of 35 and 70 mm slide titles. On acetates of cinematographic tapes in orthochromatic image. Treatment with restorative corrective resources to improve image quality, with ferrocyanide or stimulating fixative. Using masks and countermasks, by image overexposure. Transfer of magnetic information to a phono-optic band. On acetates of cinematographic tapes in orthochromatic image. Subjects of cinematographic arts and sciences that qualify me. Locution. Screenwriter. Lightning. cameraman, stage design, edition, subjects of the arts, planning, design, sketches, layout, signage, dingraph, technical drawing, drawing with graphite, cartoons for perception projected at 24 frames per second or more, oil paint applied with a brush, paint applied with airbrushing, photo engraving, studies conducted at the Motion Picture Arts and Sciences Institute in Los Angeles, California, United States. Credential BF 1357. HmolikC is the author, researcher, designer of the manual operation, and developer of the SDF HmolikC brand system, patented in the OEPM Madrid, Spain, an operational tool that uses templates, where the values of the decoder and the encoder are gathered, thanks to the acquired knowledge that is compiled in the notes of the HmolikC profile. Hmolik says verbatim Candelo, my dedication to rigorous attention in 1972, to the sequences of continuous novelties, constituted references to new sources of reference of knowledge generated by the research in process, which to advance required resources and tools, which at specific times I had to personally manufacture by hand because they did not exist. I am, and always will be, a mechanic, a technician, a carpenter, a craftsman of the image. I am able to accurately interpret and then recount the history of an image's panchromatic or orthochromatic radiography, using values provided by pre-programmed mathematical formulas that have always existed, exist, and will exist in the future, accounting acts exercised by the genetic source code in the natural transmission of information. Absolutely everything that exists can be obtained, originated, and developed manually if one acquires the faculties of knowledge of the components, functionality, and operational interpretation of the genetic source code. To take an example never expressed before, that any sound can be originated with a drawing outlined with a rapidograph or fine line pen 03, in other words, to allow easy understanding, all musical instruments including the human voice that participate in a philharmonic concert, can be drawn with a fine pen, once the orthochromatic drawing is obtained, which is formed as audio information sensitive to the variation of the oscillation of light. Then it is transferred to the acetate tape of the soundtrack, and finally the optical sound reproduction device presents the drawn sound result, and that has not been originated by the Philharmonic Orchestra, but originated on a drawing table with illuminated glass for mounting graphic arts, cartoons, or lithographic preparation. Another novel and unique example is that an 18-digit number 1 for 5700000000000000 to 90 digits long can represent all the information held in a database assembled in a storage area the size of 4 stadiums or more, like those at Google. This previous example indicates that the SDF HmolikC system, in its application when encoding and decoding all the information stored in that area of the 4 stages, expresses them in 18 digits to 90 digits, meaning that the device that has the SDF HmolikC application incorporated is activated to obtain the result of the 18 to 90 digits. The user writes down in a notebook, for example, and moves to the farthest part of the North Pole to the South Pole, to another device that also has the SDF HmolikC application incorporated. The user enters the number written down and as a result obtains all the information of the 4 stages, knowing that the 2 devices do not have any internet network access or wireless options. Lastly and most importantly, by acquiring the clarity and understanding that the notes gathered in the HmolikC profile originate from the findings of the new reference sources of knowledge of the operation of the nature of the functionality and usefulness, among them the most important definitive achievement obtained, the pathology of transmission of genetic information and its genetic source code. This most important definitive achievement obtained provides the decoding and coding mechanism of the SDF HmolikC system, to attend to queries and precise, exact responses of diagnoses of the new states in their different normal or critical events, providing the exact response to heal from the origin, the existences that are compromised, and consequently establish normality in health issues, evidently if it is the temporal cycle that is affected. HmolikC as researcher and owner of the SDF HmolikC system, I notify. When the International Supreme Court of Justice of The Hague or another competent entity summons me in person to present, support, demonstrate and verify the functionality and usefulness of the reason for the definitive achievements obtained, including the pathology of transmission of genetic information with the operational infrastructure of the source code and, consequently, provide the certified acceptance of all the committed components contained in the profile notes, HmolikC, so called, by the owner and researcher HmolikC. I will then share the mechanism, which does not require exponential financial budgets, obviously by first equipping the laboratory with the necessary equipment and activating it for each topic consulted, providing the exact answers just as nature determines to preserve the normal function of the cycle of each of the existences that make up all given existence. These state, at many times I have activated the option to personally contact Mark Zuckerberg, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, Elon Musk, because in my perception it is what is appropriate to inform that at the time that the International Supreme Court of Justice of The Hague in its main direct jurisdiction in the Netherlands or another entity with competence, after HmolikC present, and duly support the functionality and usefulness of the reason for the application of the SDF HmolikC system, at that time, a before and after occurs for the application platforms that have captured millions of users, and also a before and after in health issues that are in a critical state, so that it is socialized and supplied free of charge to absolutely everyone. At the time that HmolikC is officially granted certified acceptance of the functionality and usefulness of the completely new knowledge and the incorporation into the certified acceptance of all components involved in the operation of each exact response, which are processed by the SDF HmolikC system, including basic membership fees and the requirements incorporated so that the supply is free of charge to all in the response in which the health clinical pictures are involved. This relevant reference moment will generate two options. First option, manufacturing in industrial quantities to meet the demand for a computerized systematized device with peripheral autonomy in a microprocessor with USB access compatible with computer readers that have a number of million users, including tablets or mobile phones. Second option, if a conversation does not take place at this time before receiving certified acceptance with people, companies, institutions, corporations, regarding the panorama of the capacity of the novelty of the ongoing innovation, then HmolikC will activate the resources and procedures to manufacture in industrial quantities to meet the demand for autonomous computerized system devices, allowing users to access all the services they need without having to connect to computers, as do the same number of millionaire users, including tablets or mobile phones. In other words, if it's easier to understand, everything becomes obsolete. I also attach the most relevant information, so that people, researchers, scientists, consultants, who once they read this book and find any of the notes gathered in the HmolikC profile, can notify that they know the operation and functioning of the templates, images, and technical sheets openly shared in publications that are incorporated into the SDF HmolikC system, these resources to obtain the same specific exact answers. Because I repeat to refresh your memory, in programmed operation, probabilities are not accepted. Having sufficient clarity and understanding, I suggest, the arts of research, the arts of writing, and the arts of painting engaged me and comfort me immensely. I have repeatedly stated that the purpose of my books is not a literary proposal or the fulfillment of a writer's dream. Each book is an open document, instructing on the knowledge acquired in 1972 and the events of the process that allow it to be shared and freely provided to everyone, in terms of functionality and usefulness in health matters. Work, your shit supports who you are. Author, HmolikC. From Palmira, Valle del Cauca, Colombia. Published by Universo de Letras of the Planeta Group, Spain. The following book openly publishes the rationale for the acquired knowledge, the process, its functionality and usefulness, the techniques with their resources, and the innovative components that are activated to provide the exact answers. Also included are the events that arise during the process, which are supported by the imprudence of outside professionals and prevent satisfactory progress. Editor, Universo de Letras del Grupo Planeta. The knowledge I acquired summoned my perception of intelligence, and my desire to participate, rigorously attending to the art of research, analysis, verification, the arts of writing, and the arts of painting, engaged me and comforts me immensely. The purpose of my books is not a literary proposal or the fulfillment of a writer's dream. Nor is it to receive recognition, henceforth, because having this knowledge, evidently being part of the family and close people who, through their silence and actions, allowed the themes and the process to advance, be socialized, and supplied. Each book is an open document, reflecting the knowledge acquired in 1972 and the events of the process that allow it to be shared and freely provided to everyone.